this time. The CTE committee is interested in having more of our meetings taking place in schools just like this one around the state. We recognize the value in really seeing what's going on the ground, hearing from teachers and educators and students and talking to them about the great things that they're doing and about some of the challenges and opportunities they see for the CTE committee to better support their work. So thank you, Anne Rundle, for being our very first host, and we look forward to traveling across the state in the months and years ahead. And before we get started on our agenda, I would also like to acknowledge that we have representatives here today with MSD, Dr. Carrie Wright, the new interim superintendent's first day was Monday. She wasn't able to be here with us, but we did want to acknowledge that we will be looking forward to her membership and support and partnership on the committee. And thank you, Richard and Dr. Collins, for being with us today. Okay, before we start, Molly, can you do a roll call of members we have present, please?
Absolutely. So the members we have present are Brian Cavey, Michael Thomas, Ira Norton. And I believe that's it. Yeah, I don't think we have any of the virtual attendees that we were expecting. And there were a few last minute emergencies. So we do not have a quorum. We do have one item on the agenda that will require action. And a majority of the members do need to be present to do that. So we will set a special meeting at a later date in order to vote on that. And we will announce that and put that information up on our website for anyone who wants to tune in.
All right, thank you, Molly and Rachel, and welcome everybody. Can you believe we've been meeting as a committee for a year? Yeah, it's been a year. So I thought it might be good for right. I thought it might be good for us to take a minute to reflect on what we've accomplished as a committee thus far and talk about what we have in front of us. Over the last year, we've met as a committee 8 times to really dig into the work in front of us, and part of what came out of those conversations and meetings was we conducted 50 stakeholder interviews across a wide, diverse range of folks. We submitted our initial implementation plan, and I'm happy to report that that was just recently approved. We got some great feedback there, which I'll share in just a moment to help us as we think about preparing for the next implementation plan that we need to submit. We also helped in the review of the implementation plans and career counseling MOUs from the 24 LEAs across the state, providing feedback and helping to move that work forward. And we submitted our expert review team plan for this sort of pilot year as we think about testing some things out in this school year to inform our full deployment of expert review team plans for the next school year. So not too bad. There's still a lot to do. I don't think I have to tell the folks around this table that. So what do we have in front of us? We need to develop a statewide framework for CTE. We need to identify the criteria and process for identifying industry recognized credentials. How is that going to work? We need to define what are the requirements or the parameters around apprenticeships that will count towards the big 45% goal that we have here. We need to define the roles and responsibilities of partners across the state that are going to be collaborating, working together to achieve that goal. We also need to flesh out the expert review team plans going forward. So we're going to test out some things this year, and we need to take both the experiences we have in the coming year and more feedback across the state to really think thoughtfully about what those expert review teams how they should operate, how they best support schools and systems across the state. We also need to establish an advisory committee to develop and update occupational skills standards. This is a big and important work that we need to move on with a sense of urgency here. And then we're already looking towards June. We'll be submitting the implementation plan for FY 25 to 27. So everything that I just talked about is sort of, going to be built into that plan. So we have our work cut out for us. But we're here for it, right? That's good. Okay, so I'd like to share some of the feedback that we received from the AIB on our initial implementation plan, so everyone's sort of aware and can be part of the process as we implement that feedback in building our next implementation plan. One, I just want to say overall, the feedback was positive. There was appreciation for the thought that went into the development of the plan. The level of detail that was provided to really explain things clearly so that someone who isn't working in CTE every day, all day, and doesn't know everything there is to know about the blueprint can read that implementation plan and understand what's being put forward there. The other piece of really positive feedback that we received was the work that was done to really gather comprehensive feedback from a variety of stakeholders and perspectives. Some of our opportunities for improvement in the next round is one, really looking at how we bring higher ed into the fold more, right? How we rely more fully on our community college partners in this work, particularly looking at how they can be real strategic partners in providing related technical instruction, right? Taking a closer look at equity in access to CTE programs. And I think that's a critical piece that has to underline everything we do here. Developing the statewide CTE framework, really putting that framework in place so that all of the partners across the state, there's sort of a clear understanding of the roles that we all play and how we operate together. And then thinking about timelines and sequencing of all of these different pieces that we need to get in place. What, we need to lay that out really thoughtfully, how 2031 is going to be here before we know it. So that was all really good feedback and part of what we're taking on board now and thinking about how we do that. I think all of you are aware that one of the challenges that we're figuring out how to navigate is the budget for the CTE committee was pretty significantly impacted. So we've got fewer resources to work with, and this is a lot of work to take on. So we're going to want to be really thoughtful and creative in terms of how we deploy the resources that we have to achieve what is in front of us. I just want to take a minute to really commend Molly, who's been with us from the beginning and through a lot of the transition we've had in the committee over the last year. John, who joined this summer, and Rachel, who's just 2 months?
2 months.
2 months in. Yeah. So this small but mighty team has really been leading the charge, and John and Rachel are relatively new. So I just want to acknowledge this is a lot to take on with a lot of change in the committee itself and the staff as well. So thank you all for all of your work to get us to where we are. And then also, I would be remiss if I didn't thank all of the contracted resources and folks that have come to help the committee who aren't official staff, but are helping us as we put these plans together and think about how we move forward. Along those lines, I'm really happy to share that thanks to the AIB's support, we have been paired with a strategic facilitator, Latifa Durant, who I'll introduce formally a little bit later in the meeting, who's going to help us really take a minute, look at, okay, what's in front of us, help us as a committee, think about everything I just said, how do we prioritize the work? How do we take the resources that we have? What additional resources do we need? If we need to make asks for those resources, we need to do that. So we're very grateful to the AIB for providing that support, and we look forward to digging in with Latifa. And again, we'll introduce her a little bit later on in the meeting. So with that, I'm really happy to have Rachel Heiss here with us, who is the executive director of the AIB, as you may recall. Rachel was here with us in our first meeting about a year ago and gave a great overview for us, and really happy to have her back here along with Mara Doss, who sits on the board, the AIB, I thought it would be good for all of us to have a reminder of how the CTE committee sits in the strategic framework that is the blueprint for Maryland's future. So, Rachel,
Sure. I just wanted to say a few words. I'm going to need everybody's support here. And I hope that you're listening to me intently, because I am going to throw my name in the hat for Speaker of the House. Way before the AIB, I started working at Prince George's Community College, and I worked with a program which was the Job Training Program Act. That's what it was. And anybody remember the JTA? And what we did at the college is that we trained, and it was mostly women with children, and we trained them to become clerks, and we placed them in entry-level positions at the federal government. And then I moved on to still at the college, but other workforce training with other organizations. And then I decided, okay, I'm gonna get my degree, I'm gonna get my doctorate, I'm gonna move on. And still at the college, and I moved from the workforce to the academic area. And in that academic area, as an officer, I started working with policy. And instead of actually doing the work, I was getting a chance to design and to create and to implement. And some of the most notable things that we did is we designed early college programs. And we designed the first early college program in Maryland, the Academy of Health Sciences, and several others. And we had help with folks from the public school system at that time, like Latifah Durant, and we had backing of certain senators. And so with that, all of those early college programs started out with academics. Okay, the students had to have a certain GPA. The students came from first generation families and so forth. But along with that, those pathways were CTE pathways. And so the students were smart. The students went into CTE pathways, health sciences, technology, and on and on. And then we got into stackable credentials. Hey, here's a way to take our smart students and build some credentials so that when they get out of school, then they can have an option if they want to get a job or if they want to move on or your college. Intertwine. And then I retired from the college about a year and a half ago. Right before I retired, we were working on dual enrollment pathways. Again, taking those high achieving students and then intertwining those dual enrollment pathways with CTE and continuing education. And so when I look at the work that the CTE committee is doing, and I don't think you guys say this enough, you have a tremendous amount of work to do. This is, I mean, you look at the stats and you have that 45% were removed. 45% of the students with youth apprenticeships or credentials. And then I think there's only about 7% in the whole state right now. So you're doing a whole paradigm shift. This is not kids thing. It's a heavy load. And you can do it. I mean, we can do it wrong, Bob. We can do it, but I don't think we say that enough. And the pillar 3, and Rachel is going to talk more about that, and she has a great presentation plan. The pillar 3, when you look at it, it has all the CTE, and then it has all the other pathways. And when I first came into this with the AIB, I said, why did they put all of that together? it's just way too much. And then I thought about it, and then another thing, we went on the tour here, and we looked at the skills and the trades and went to the building that we're in now. And our tour guide kept saying, well, she gave us an example. She said, well, this student is taking AP, but her love is in culinary. And so she wants to do both. So pillar 3 has to be together. It cannot be separated. If it's separated, and you have CTE over here and the other part over here, then we're going right back, way back before about JTPA. And we're talking about tracking and all kinds of other things. And so it has to be together or else it just defeats the whole purpose of the blueprint. Excuse me. And so with all that, I just want to commend the CTE committee on the work so far. I reviewed the initial implementation plan, and I appreciate the way that you analyze the entire landscape so that you have to know what's going on before you can move forward. Looking forward to all of the work that's going to come about, especially with that statewide framework that's going to set that foundation and get us going and get us started. Also, and I'm going to wrap myself up and let Rachel go. They're just like we have a certain senator, and I keep saying that because he's right behind me, who says apprenticeships, apprenticeships, apprenticeships. If you come and you're around me, you're gonna hear community college, community college, community college. And to make sure that you engage the community college, have them in the forefront of your plans, because just like the rest of the that partnership has to be there in order to make this happen. And again, commend you on that first part, and we're looking forward to all the other work that's going to come about.
Great, thank you. That was a great setup for the presentation. So I just wanted to remind everyone about sort of the big why the blueprint. And I found that I stopped doing this for a while, and then I kind of realized that it really is helpful to sort of start with the big goal, the big purpose, before we kind of get into the weeds. And so, you know, as everyone here knows, the ultimate purpose and goal of the blueprint is to ensure that every child has the opportunity to be prepared for success in college, career, and life by the time they leave high school, no matter what circumstances they're born into or are living in, or you know, it doesn't matter. We need to give every child that opportunity. And that means the opportunity to learn what they need to learn, to acquire the skills that they need, both academic and also those life skills that we've talked about today on the tour, and to make choices, to have the opportunity to make choices about their future. And in blueprint language, we call that college and career ready. And Dr. Doss just did an excellent job sort of really conveying why it's so important that students have the opportunity to become college and career ready, and then the ability and the freedom to make choices about what they want to do, and for us to help them be prepared to do that. And so that's the blueprint, and you all are a big part of that, and everyone in this room. You can go to the next slide. And actually, yeah, you can just, the graphic, you could just, yeah. Just a reminder, the Kerwin Commission, which was the commission that developed the recommendations that became the blueprint for Maryland's future, they studied top performing systems around the world and in the US and Maryland, comparing Maryland to them for several years, and found had a lot of aha moments. And I just wanted to share some of the statistics and data for Maryland that led to the recommendations that are now the blueprint for Maryland's future. So in general, the US students, high school students perform about in the middle of countries around the world, education systems around the world. This includes both developed and developing countries, and we're in the middle. The US is in the middle. Maryland is in the middle, about, in some cases lower, in some cases a little higher, of US performance. And so that's not good. We need to do better. And we know that we can do better because other systems are doing it, and they're doing it with arguably bigger headwinds in front of them than the US has and Maryland has, with our, the wealth that we have, the resources that we have. And we have the framework of an excellent education system. We can be excellent. And we need to be excellent. We also, or the commission looked at data around, we know that about half of new teachers are leaving the profession every year within the first 5 years. And that was pre-pandemic data. So we all know that we have a shortage in teachers in around the state and around the country, and that the pandemic really took its toll. And I know there's some educators in this room and a lot of head nodding. In terms of student preparedness, only about 40% of students are coming into kindergarten ready to learn based on how we assess that. About 30% of third graders are reading on grade level, 30%, and about a third of students are achieving what we call college and career ready in both English and math. And that is before they leave high school. And then we also know that, between 50 and 70% of students who are going into community college, and this is within 1 year of graduating from high school, require developmental coursework or remediation in English or math, in many times both, but math more than English. And the thing about remediation is that it's not for credit. So students are incurring tuition, paying tuition, or using their Pell Grant dollars to learn, what they should have learned before they left high school, and they're not earning any credit for it. And then we also know from the Georgetown University Center for Workforce that about 2/3 of jobs in Maryland require some type of post-secondary training or education. 2/3 of jobs. And then the last point relates to something Dr. Doss referenced. About 9% of high school students are earning an industry recognized credential. And this is not just apprenticeships, this is any industry recognized credential right now. So that's not good enough. That's really the bottom line. And so if you can go to the next slide. The commission really recommended that while we do have points of light, shall we say, we have some great schools, we have great teachers, but it's not systemic and it's not serving all our students. And that's the equity focus that the blueprint really brings to our education system. As I said, all of that data was before the pandemic. And for the most part, we're in a worse position than we were in 2019. We also know, and Mark Tucker talked about this when the Kerwin Commission was meeting, that artificial intelligence was coming, and it is here. And it's I think going to accelerate the loss of those good paying, low skill jobs, and probably increase the proportion of jobs, that 2/3 of jobs that require post-secondary training. It's only going to go up. And so the status quo is not sustainable, and we need the blueprint. and we need to implement the blueprint. And we need to implement it, with fidelity, and to the best of our ability. And then just to, if we find that either what the blueprint calls for isn't working, or how we're implementing it isn't working, then we need to change. And the AIB has been very clear about that, but before we change it, we need to implement it. Can you go to the next slide, I think? Just. And then specifically for career and technical education, some of the findings or aha moments, and Michael, I believe you were on the CTE subcommittee that night, and yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so part of this work, so you know this very well, that a lot of the existing CTE programs, and this was several years back, aren't preparing students adequately for what they're gonna face in the workplace. And many of them don't have that workplace experience as part of them. As I said, only about 9% of students are earning that industry recognized credential. So right now, and the goal is really to make sure that students are leaving with some type of credential that can help them get that next job, that first job, that can lead to, as Dr. Doss referred to, the stackable credentials. Many CTE programs are not aligned with the community college or post-secondary programs and certificates that exist. And so students don't really have a pathway. It's sort of, I think I said, a path to nowhere. And so, this is part of what the blueprint is really, the vision of the blueprint, to really align the secondary and post-secondary CTE programs, certificate programs, apprenticeship offerings, so that students have pathways. They're also looking at the engagement with employers and really ensuring the connection to what employers need, what the workforce needs, what skills are needed by employers, was not as strong as the commission would like, and as it is in a lot of top performing systems, which is why the CTE committee, the commission ultimately recommended creating a new entity to coordinate CTE that was located in the Department of Labor with the Governor's Workforce Development Board, so that there was that sort of immediate and undeniable connection with workforce. And I know a lot of people wonder why it's sort of sitting over here. That was what that is why. And then, of course, a lot of top performing systems have very robust apprenticeship programs that offer students that workplace, not just experience, but like immersive workplace experience along with the education that they need. These are the 5 pillars of the blueprint, and as Dr. Doss was referring to, pillar 3 is college and career readiness. We probably should make it bigger. Because it not only is a lot, but it really is, as I referred to, it is like the North Star of the blueprint. It is what pillars 1, 2, 4, and 5 are all helping to support and drive towards. And within pillar 3 is where the CTE committee sits. And so some of the specifics of what the blueprint calls for the CTE committee, as I said, is creating a new entity and having it over in Department of Labor and more affiliated with the workforce side of things, which is not to say that the K-12 side is not important. And that is why K-12 is represented on the CTE committee as well. We want to make those connections and those partnerships and collaboration are critical to success of the blueprint and of the CCR pathways. You know about the 45% goal. for high school students to complete an apprenticeship or another industry recognized credential by 2031. Let's say we're at 9%, that's a long way to go. And then as we talked, Dr. Doss talked about the framework for career and technical education, and Chair Norton talked about the Skills Standard Advisory Board, which is part of the blueprint recommendations, which really the intent of the Skills Standards Advisory Board was kind of to be like the industry experts in different fields that would advise the CTE committee about what a CTE program and pathways in that industry should look like. So I know that's a little amorphous in the law, but that was the intent of the Skills Standard Advisory Board. And then, of course, the expert review teams, similar to through the State Department of Education, the blueprint created an expert review team to examine the get into schools, just like you're doing today, but in a very, evaluative type of way to see what's working and what's not working in our high schools and CTE schools around the state. And finally, last but not least, I should say, there is a new middle and high school career counseling program that has started up this year. And the CTE committee did support AIB in reviewing those plans, very helpful. And moving forward, the CTE committee is actually charged with evaluating the effectiveness of these new career counseling programs around the 24 school systems and identifying best practices and making recommendations about what next steps. This is just a high-level overview of the timeline of the blueprint across all of the pillars. And you can see the new career counseling program and implementation of the post-CCR pathways are all starting now. And then phasing up to full implementation no later than 2031. This is just a slide we like to share. I think it speaks for itself, and it's a lot of work. There's a lot of work, not just in what you all are doing all across the blueprint, but we gotta just buckle down and do it. I think that's it. Yep.
Thank you so much. Sure. Rachel, I'd like to open it up if any committee members have questions for Ms. Heiss or Dr. Doss. Anything anyone would like to know more about? I have one question that occurred to me, which is one of the I think biggest tasks we have is to put together this framework for framework for CTE, because everything else kind of flows from that. Does the AIB have in mind the certain components that you envision being in that framework, or even are there examples of what good looks like? You know what I mean? Like any guidance you have for us as we think about how to structure that framework and I mean, anything from format to substance, seriously.
No, I understand the question. We can certainly share some examples from some top performing systems.
Right.
But I do think that it really requires identifying what are the non-negotiables that that every program needs to have. One of them would be it's got to end in something, a credential that the industry actually recognizes as valuable, not just a credential. So I think, and I emphasize that, I think sometimes there are a lot of credentials out there, but the industry doesn't necessarily value them.
Does it lead to a job?
Right, exactly.
Does it, yeah.
So that would be, so I think it's like identifying those non-negotiables that every CTE program needs to include. And then, that's becomes sort of your framework. And then, by industry is where you can sort of have the flexibility for what the needs are in that particular industry. But we're happy to share some examples with you, and I think Jackie can help us with that.
That would be wonderful. I think that would just help inform our work, and get our collective brains moving on how to, because I'll ask one other question, then please, anyone else jump in, but I also think about, so if we talk about what are the non-negotiables, there's also then this question of like, I'm gonna use the term who, I don't mean a specific person, but I mean like, what entities are responsible for it? It's this kind of delineation of how partnerships come together, because to move forward on a goal like this is going to require clear lines of accountability, I think. If we can't articulate that clearly, but I think that's my impression of this, is that we need to have clear lines of accountability in this framework. Am I off base there?
And I was just going to say, you mentioned it early on when we talked about defining and clarifying the roles and responsibilities of partners. And along with that, I believe will come the resources that go along with each of those partnerships, defining that. And then you mentioned about actually defining those industry recognized credentials. Because if you put together Rachel's part, we want to make sure that they each entity is working with the credentials that you guys have defined, and that they're not working outside of that realm.
Thank you.
I got a couple.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of them, on the first couple slides, about 50% of new teachers leaving the profession in the first 5 years. That stinks. I leaned over to Mike and I said, the easy way to do that is give them all a raise. That's coming from the union guy in the room.
The blueprint does do that. It does
Well,
like
now
this.
I'm gonna go there, and one of the very late slides said 2030 to have all teachers at 60K. Are you kidding me? That's
Starting-
not it.
That's the, can you go back?
I mean, that's 7 years from now, and we're only gonna have them at 60K.
No, that's the starting salary. That's for brand new teachers.
Okay,
And that's starting in fiscal 27.
Yeah.
So the 26-27 school year.
minimum, all
The
right.
minimum
It went
starting
quick. I
salary.
was writing
Yep,
notes, so-
yep.
Because I'm thinking, wow, that's not gonna do it.
No, that won't do it. You're absolutely right.
So, okay, good. That's a better answer. I like that better. 2/3 of Maryland jobs require post-secondary education or training. Does that include jobs that are apprenticeable? Okay,
That is a good question. I
Jim
assume
says yes.
so. I assume so.
Okay.
Yeah.
because Jim and I have had this conversation that apprenticeship needs to be recognized as post-secondary education.
Oh,
right?
I see
And
what you're
and
saying.
until it is, we're not gonna get anywhere.
And I think you're talking about any type of post-secondary credential, they're not just degrees, right?
Yes.
Too, and so.
Or
things that
training,
should-
yeah.
Should be seen to apprenticeship.
Definitely.
Well, and coming from the apprenticeship world, right now it isn't.
Yeah,
Apprenticeship is not recognized as post-secondary, and especially in the construction trades, apprenticeship is recognized as full-time employment, which is the exact opposite of post-secondary, right? It's what people don't want kids to go to. They want them to go get post-secondary. And my program has been always, that those kids are recognized as graduating high school and going straight to full-time employment and not entering an education program. And we need to fix that.
Yeah, 100%. Post-secondary training includes apprenticeships, absolutely. In blueprints.
Thank you.
And you all will have these slides too.
Yeah. I'm gonna share that.
yeah, go ahead. If no one else, and I'll just, first, thank you for being here with us, kind of our 1-year anniversary meeting of sorts. And I know as someone 2 months into this job, I've, over the first couple months been learning more about the blueprint, about our role within it, talking to different stakeholders that are involved in our work within the blueprint. And, I think sometimes hearing different things, different feedback about our purpose, what our role is, what we need to focus on, what's most important and needs to come first. And so I think kind of refreshing at this 1-year point is a good thing for us to do. It's really deliberate too. As Myra said, she was talking about the work ahead of us. And we've laid some good groundwork, but we need to really move ahead with a lot of urgency on some of our upcoming deliverables. And those of you that were at the September meeting of the Governor's Workforce Development Board heard me say things like this to that board about some of the other work that they're involved in outside of what we're doing here on this committee. But it's really going to take a kind of, I think, new level of engagement and real work, even in between these meetings. And the question I wanted to kind of pose, as I've been hearing different things, I think one thing that I think might be good for everyone in this room to also kind of be on the same page on is kind of just the fundamental role of the committee in the system and the long-term vision for that. I know the AIB might dissolve at some point. I've heard questions out there about, is the CTE committee kind of on a similar track? Is it meant to be a permanent entity in the system? Might it evolve? You talked about things that need to change as we implement. So I kind of would love to hear your vision on that.
Sure. So the AIB, the commission recommended creating the Accountability and Implementation Board to oversee the implementation, the phase up. So it essentially has a 12-year life. And then at the end of that time, there's an evaluation and a report and a recommendation as to whether the AIB should continue, needs to continue, whether other changes with the roles and responsibilities of other entities should change to take on some of what the AIB had done. So that is very specifically in the law. The CTE committee does not have a sell-by date. It is permanent. And it is intended to permanently be the coordinator and sort of oversight of career and technical education in Maryland.
I think that's helpful. I think as we think about like ramping up and accelerating some of our immediate deliverables, understanding how we frame our future, I think just kind of informs how we frame our approach to some of the work we need to take on. So I think that call to action for us in this kind of year 2 of the CT committee is very clear. Thank you, Chairman.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay. Then I would like to introduce you now to Latifa Durant, who, as I mentioned earlier, we paired with, she's going to be our strategic facilitator for this committee. Latifa works at CityWorks DC, and she has incredible knowledge and experience in the CTE space. She was a former CTE director in Prince George's County and has experience expanding apprenticeships for high school students. So Latifa, welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Myra. It's just exciting to meet all of you. Thank you so much, Rachel, for kind of your overview of AIB and where we are today. I think you laid out very clearly kind of the facts, right? We are in the middle as a state in the fact that, our current CTE programs just aren't sufficient to meet our workforce needs. But I think the CTE committee is that hope, is that potential that we have to build a statewide system, not just CTE programs. It's the opportunity to really develop our occupational skill standards that meets the needs of our industry partners. And it also gives us an opportunity to define the credentials and select those credentials that really are going to matter most to the workplace. So just thank you all for allowing me to work alongside you on the CTE committee. And I look forward to working with the committee and the CTE staff to ensure that all of our young people have access to the supports that they need, to the training that they need, to the workplace experiences that they need in order to successfully launch their career. Some of the things that we're going to do together are listed there on the in the PowerPoint. Just, we're going to work together to develop and implement that project plan to create a statewide framework. We're going to be defining those key terms. I know the LEAs are waiting with bated breath for how we're going to define high school apprenticeships as well as our industry recognized credentials. Really coming up with what our statewide goals are going to be to reach that 45% target of all high school students completing a high school level of registered apprenticeship or other industry recognized credential. And really just coming up with a plan, like how we're going to scope and sequence and work this thing out. And I think it was already said, it won't just be in these meetings. So get ready. We're going to roll up our sleeves and I look forward to getting to work right alongside you. So thank you so much for having me.
Happy to have you. Thanks.
Yes, thanks. We're really looking forward to working with you.
Likewise.
Thank you. Great. Okay, I want to share a little bit with you about the Apprenticeship 2030 Commission. So, this, commission was established, earlier this year, this summer, with the goal of really bringing cross-functional group of folks to make recommendations in terms of how best to expand registered apprenticeships, right? How do we, what do we need to do to achieve the 45% goal that sits in front of us? And those recommendations might include changes to the law. It could be guidance on specific tasks that we need to move forward with within the CTE ecosystem. Could be specific solutions to make the process for employer recruitment and onboarding easier and more effective. So these recommendations can cover a variety of topics. The commission consists of several members of the Governor's Workforce Development Board. The CTE committee chair or designee serves on that commission. Rachel's the designee for the chair of the Governor's Workforce Development Board. Brian is also on the commission as the MATC chair. We started to meet in September, and we're going to have initial recommendations in the December timeframe. We've got 4 work groups. Business models and funding options is one. Activating employer engagement. Second, interoperability with the CTE committee. So I'm actually chairing that work group, and the idea behind that committee is to really make sure that the recommendations that come from the 2030 commission are kind of aligned with the work that we're doing here. And then the role of intermediaries, and Brian is the chair of that work group. You want to share a little bit about what you guys are focused on?
We are first focusing on defining what an intermediary is. And that's been a little bit of a task in itself. Kirk's on the subcommittee as well. So we have some meetings scheduled with some national intermediaries, just trying to learn what they do, how they work, services they provide to help us define it here in the state of Maryland. And all in preparation for a November 8th meeting with some type of a report that we'll give to the 2030 commission. That it's a very fast-paced committee. Myra and Rachel can attest to. So be prepared for November 8th. We'll see what we got.
Yeah, and I just want to invite anyone here or members of the public that are interested in serving on a work group. Those are not limited. We welcome outside voices there. We're really trying to compile the best ideas. So if anyone is interested, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to have you.
And honestly, that's what, if you're interested, please reach out, because that's the only way that I got the committee. I mean, the members of my work group they all reached out to me.
Yeah.
And said, I'm interested. That's what you need to do.
That's right. Please do that. Okay, any questions on the 2030 commission? What we're doing there? Okay. All right, the next piece we want to talk about is career counseling. We're very happy to have Kurt Murray here with us. He's the director of the Anne Arundel County Local Workforce Development Board, also president of the Maryland Workforce Association and the Association of the Directors of Maryland's 13 local workforce development boards. Got a big job.
I do. So thank you all. But first of all, I will be remiss if I didn't welcome you to Anne Arundel County. As our county executive superintendent says, the best place for all. So thank you for being here. Thank you for having your first on-site meeting here with my cousin Ryan. Being here with you guys. So career counseling. So, you know, a lot of people, when they talk about pillar 3, they really talk about the CTE work, and that's a big job. I would argue that a bigger job is this career counseling piece and getting these career counselors in the schools, working with middle school and high school students to help them better pick a career goal and to be on a pathway to one of these post-CCR be on track with one of these both CCR pathways. So what I passed out to you guys, I brought goodies to pass out to you guys in Anne Arundel County. We're implementing the program. We have already started hiring career coaches. They're already, the majority of them are already in the schools, and this piece I passed out to you is what we sent to the schools to introduce their career counselors, so that they know who is coming into the school and what their role was. The reason I sent two, we had one that's general, and then one of our staff people has a dog that comes with them, and we wanted them to see the dog too, so we did that. But let me go really high, then I'll come back down specifically to Anne Arundel County. So really high, so all the 13 workforce boards, as was stated by Rachel, had to turn in their career counseling implementation plan in March. And part of that was driving the MOU, the memorandum of understanding between the three-way partnership between the LEAs, the local workforce boards, and the community colleges. So all of those MOUs have been approved. Some of them are still going through signature process, but they've gone through all the legal review and approval of the AIB and the CTE committee, with the help of the CTE committee to that point. Now what we're doing is comes the fun part. Now that you've sat down and you've worked out how you're going to work together, discuss things about staffing, who's going to hire the staff. Different local areas are doing different ways. Several of the local workforce areas, the LEA is hiring the staff. Frederick County and some of the ones on the shore, the staff, the LEA is hiring. Some of the other ones like Anne Arundel, Montgomery, Howard, Prince George's, the local workforce board is hiring staff. So all those type of things were discussed in the MOU. How was the money going to flow from the LEAs to the local workforce boards? All of that was in the MOUs. And we dealt with that. How to share data around student information. All of that was in the MOUs and taking care of that. One, I think in a previous conversation I've had with the AIB, by the way, I sit on the Pillar 3 AIB implementation committee, so I really get engrossed in this stuff. One conversation we had recently, we realized that one thing we probably should have talked about in the MOU, and I think we're going to do some modifications on that, is the evaluation process of these career coaches, especially since some of them are hired by the LEAs and some are hired by the local workforce board. So I mean, that was one thing that I think that we're going to have to look at. But that was a fun process. It really got us a chance to really sit down and talk about this and really develop relationships. Previous to this exercise, I'll be honest, some local workforce boards had a great relationship with their LEA, and especially with the CTE side of it. I mean, for example, Ryan sits on our local workforce board, so we had that relationship. Some, it was, like your neighbors, you wave as you drive by, type of thing. But this has really brought us all together to really talk about how we're going to work to implement this career counseling objective. So where we are now is that now that we've gotten all the paperwork done and now we're really into where the rubber meets the road. A lot of the local workforce boards are now bringing on their career coaches, or the LEAs are hiring them, they're bringing on their career coaches with that. Specifically in Anne Arundel County, we've decided that we're going to start in the middle schools. In partnership with the school system, we agreed that we were going to pilot this in the 8th grade by the 3rd market period, 7th grade, and then by the 4th to 6th grade. So we're phasing this in. So we are now in the process of hiring 21 career coaches. The majority of them are already on board. I think we only have 2 more to fill, and then the majority of the ones that are already on board have already started going into the school, and I believe they've already delivered their first lesson.
This week, this week.
This week they're delivering their first lesson. And actually Kevin has been our main partner and our main project. So Kevin, have you talked a little bit more about how this is working from this LEA perspective?
Absolutely. So it's our great partnership opportunity provides us with this synergy of people who know workforce and they know the world of work, but maybe don't quite know education, right? And working with 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds is a different story than working with young adults. And so our partnership allows us to blend those worlds together. And so on Friday, our career coaches came together with me and they brought their first activity around our hitch, our industry areas. And we were able to dry run that first activity together. And I was able to give them some educational tips, right? Some teaching tips that can help them be ready to be in that classroom of 13 and 14-year-olds. And they've begun the process, and under Kirk's leadership, we're going slow to go fast. We began with just integrating into the school, becoming part of the school culture, meeting with the faculty, the staff, meeting with students, families, community, hosting events will come later, but schools already have events planned. So how can we elevate program, which is really our goal here in Anne Arundel County? We have great structures in place through programming that already exists within education, but with workforce, we can elevate it to a higher level. We can make that purposeful connection. Our 8th grade students are already showing benefit of planning for our magnet programs, learning about our centers of applied technology even more deeply than they already were. So we're very excited as we onboard our coaches to connect them to our school principals and their leadership, and then connect them to teachers and to students, which is the goal.
So it's, you know, this is new, this is different, it's a big goal, so a lot of lessons we learned. We've been working very close, almost a year now, I think. A year we've been planning all this, and now that we're in the schools, we realize some of those plans need to be tweaked. You know, one of the things that I feel that is important is, and it's hard to do in the school system and in the school day because there's so many other requirements, but dedicated time, especially with that individualized that we have to do, making sure that we are able to provide services to all high schools and looking at how is their dedicated time in the school day for career counseling activities. We had talked about going into some of the core classes and kind of teaching about different occupations related to the subject that's being taught, bringing in guest speakers. We're also planning field trips that are aligned with industry. One of the things that we're looking at is over the summer is doing more industry awareness camps or job readiness camps with students. I'm partnering with Anne Arundel Community College and Leadership Maryland and other entities to really look at those camps and really introduce kids to different career opportunities. Again, for them to kind of hone that in, to really figure out, now, we're not telling a kid that in 8th grade, you need to decide what you're going to be. But this is starting to get them to understand what type of careers lend to their aptitude, their ability, their interests, their strengths that they may want to pursue and continue with their education. And again, identifying those post-CCR pathways. We know that in the 10th grade that there's going to be a CCR readiness assessment. We know that some students aren't going to necessarily pass that. So we're developing plans on how we're going to work with those students past the 10th, 11th grade, that while they're still developing those skills, that we're still introducing them to careers. We're looking at how we're going to be able to work with all students, those students with disabilities, those students in Anne Arundel County, there are a couple of alternative schools, how we're going to work with those, the charter schools. So we're really looking at this as being a real comprehensive program that really will help kids to better identify careers in the future. At the Maryland Workforce Association, it's the Association of the 13 Workforce Development Directors. We have received funding to help with this. We have entered into an agreement with an organization called the Education Collaborative that cooperative. See, I always get things up, but cooperative. They're based in California, but they have done this career counseling throughout the country, and they're going to come in their agreement. They are to do 2 convenings, and we're really hoping that these convenings will bring everyone together. The local workforce boards, the LEAs, the community colleges, so that we're all learning about this at the same time. What we're looking at is probably that first one, kind of not only bringing in best practice from around the country, but for the LEAs and local boards that have already started this, learning some of the lessons together so that we can really learn together. And for those that have not actually started going to the school system, can learn from some of the lessons that we've learned going into the school system. Then we're looking at after the first convening is that they will provide technical assistance as we finalize our implementation plan. One of the things that we agreed with the AIB was that the MOUs, when they were signed in March, that in the fall, we would do a full-scale implementation plan. I'm telling you, as a local area that's just going into this, what I would tell you right now probably isn't what it's going to be. So we're asking that we can extend that to sometime in the spring, and then, you know, this organization can help us with that implementation plan. So we have that implementation plan at the end. The other thing that's happened is that we have entered into agreement with the Beacon Institute, which is part of Salisbury State, to really help guide what are those benchmarks that we really want around career counseling. One of the difficulties that we had with setting up a program or designing a program is that we really don't know what the outcomes are. We know that we want students to go onto a post CCR pathway. We know that every student has to receive career counseling. So we know those, but what are those other benchmarks that we really want to do to show? And it's really to help this committee so that when you're evaluating the career counseling piece of this, you have some metrics that you're looking at for this. One of the things that's become very obvious to me as I sit on Anne Arundel's implementation, they shared some data about the number of students that go into the different post-CCR pathways. And also not only how many students go into each one, but look at it by race. There's a big audacious goal there to increase that, to make sure that students of color are going into these post-CCR pathways. So looking at things like that. So not only what the blueprint's looking at, but how do we really want to tell the story that career counseling really moved the needle and what it was intended to do. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of work. You know, in Anne Arundel County, we're meeting monthly to continue to talk about this. Kevin has been a great partner in working directly with our program director and implementing this and getting it done. I have had good working relations with superintendent for the schools, Dr. Goodell. Matter of fact, he and I cut an early video kind of introducing this whole career counseling piece to the public and so that they're aware of it. Something that we have come across that wasn't necessarily what we had originally envisioned, but actually I take that back because the school did make it clear that we're to provide service not only to the students, but the whole family. But this has given us under another pillar of Blueprint, an opportunity to go into these community schools and work with them. So we've been talking with the Blueprint implementation coordinator for Anne Arundel County. And one of the things that they've been focusing is on workforce and connecting parents to workforce opportunities. So we've been talking about how do we, on the other side, outside of career counseling, outside of the Blueprint funding, is doing the normal job that the local workforce do. How do we better engage parents into this part of it and get them on a better job? So again, that is going to be something that can be a success of Blueprint and showing that. So the last thing for this committee, one of the things when you look at that I would like to ask or keep and ask that you keep in mind as you start doing the work, when you're looking at the skill standards and things like this, remember you have a local workforce board. Please remember that. I think sometimes that gets forgotten, but you have a local workforce board that's made up of 51% businesses. And most of those businesses come from those high growth industries within that area. They could be a resource to you. They can let you know what are those skills that they really need. What are those credentials that they really feel valuable? I know that we leverage them in Anne Arundel County. We've identified 5 high growth industries. We call it HITCH. It's healthcare, IT, transportation, construction, and hospitality. Our local workforce boards are that 51% of the membership comes from those industries, and that's what they do. They advise us on what are the skills that we need to prepare individuals for. What are those credentials that that are important? What are the hands-on experience where we can look at work and learns, high school level apprenticeship programs and regular registered apprenticeship. So please don't forget your local workforce boards in your conversation. And my last thing is that outside of Totally Blueprint, we're partnering with Ryan's team in Anne Arundel School that through their Maryland Works grant that they wrote us in to be a partner. And we are now, our team is going out and helping to get businesses, educate businesses to high school level apprenticeship program, what it is, the value of it. We're supporting them in writing the application. We have a goal that we have to get 30 applications approved by the MATC board. So Brian, be nice to us when you come. But I will stop talking and be glad to answer any questions or any comments or.
Thank you so much. Any questions?
Well, I just want to say, Kirkland, that was a great presentation. You
Thank you.
answered every question I had, and you know I was gonna ask about the community college involvement, and you answered it.
Well, you helped me with that because I am a graduate of Prince George's Community College, along with Frostburg State University.
But I do have one question though. The video that you're gonna do with Superintendent Vidal, or that you've done with Superintendent Vidal, can you share that with us or tell us how to access it when it's available?
I believe it's on the school's website, but we'll make sure I'll send a link to Molly and Rachel, and they can send it out.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Great, and I think we're gonna have a little discussion maybe planned, but we're running a little bit short on time potentially for that as in depth, but I think maybe just in closing, you answered one, you partially answered the question already, just thinking about how the committee can support and engage with locals and not only on the career counseling piece. I'm really glad, I appreciate that advice on the skill standards. It's a really great point. Around the career counseling piece, what would be helpful from the committee going forward? Is it helpful to engage in dialogue around kind of that definition of success, what a vision for a good program looks like, that end state we're driving toward, kind of that feedback loop as you work with Beacon, or maybe you have other ideas?
I definitely think that latter, really making sure, I think that, and I'm glad that Rachel, when she did her presentation, start from the beginning and talk about why we're doing this. I think everyone forgets why we're doing this. I think having a real strong definition or vision to what is it that we're trying to achieve with career counseling. I think that's very, very important. And then again, helping with those benchmarks to really show that. I mean, really what is going to help you, because and I believe and I should know this, but just make sure I say this correctly, in 3 years, you're going to have to evaluate this whole career counseling piece. What is it that can help you better do that evaluation? I mean, what are some of the qualitative and quantitative data that could be used in this would be very helpful. But just keep us honest, keep checking in on us. Come out and and visit a school, and for any of those who are in Anne Arundel County Senator, be a guest speaker. Let's share with these students your career path and how you pick your career path. So yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Everybody welcome.
Okay, I think we still do not have a quorum. I'm gonna just check.
Correct. I did want the record to show that Sharnetta Young did join virtually, so
Right.
that's another board member, but
Thank you.
you do not have a quorum.
Okay, so we're not gonna be voting on this MOU, but I do just want, we circulated it to the committee. I just want to highlight, I just want to say, this was developed in collaboration with MSDE committee, the appropriate legal folks that have to get involved in these kinds of things. And I'm really, appreciative of all of the folks, Richard in particular, who worked with Molly and Rachel and myself and many others to come to a really good place on this MOU. And I'll just give like the high level sort of thesis behind the language that we developed here and what we came to is we have a state strategy for education, right, which is the blueprint that we are working to implement. Perkins is a tool in the toolbox in terms of resources that we can leverage and deploy in service of achieving that broader strategy. And so the way we frame this MOU is really to capture that and to acknowledge that there are pieces of administration of Perkins that are outside the purview of the CTE committee. And there's work that the CTE committee does that has nothing to do with Perkins. And so just being clear about how we're going to really work collaboratively together with MSDE to develop the implementation plan for Perkins going forward. Any questions on any of that? We will set up a brief call, 15-minute call for committee members sometime in the next couple of weeks to do a formal vote on this. So if you didn't have a chance to review it before this meeting, please do, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll move forward with that. Okay, and most importantly, get started on working together on the plan. That's really the real work. Okay, great. Now, I'm very happy to introduce Ryan Sackett, who I've gotten to know a little bit here today. He's the coordinator of CTE at Anne Arundel County Public Schools. I actually have a son and daughter here in Anne Arundel County, and my son will graduate in 2031. So all of this. We had a wonderful tour here today. For me personally, because my kids are younger, seeing what's here is just incredible. And I'm excited for you all to hear Ryan. Great work.
Well, thank you, Myra. I want to thank everybody for letting us host you today. It's been an absolutely fabulous experience and an honor for us to showcase. We got to see some comprehensive high school programs. And today we're sitting in the Center of Applied Technology South. We got to see what the other side of the CTE coin looks like a little bit. And I have an ambitious goal of getting through all this in 15 minutes. We'll see how it goes. So I want to give you an idea, a little bit of a picture about what CTE looks like in ACPS. Our office oversees over 200 courses, grades 6 through 12, that comprise different CTE programs, and within those 253 college and career preparatory CTE programs. In those programs, we currently offer 39 industry recognized credentials. Those are the credentials that count towards Blueprint, not just industry recognized certifications. And of our 53 programs, 43 offer some kind of college credit as a part of the track towards completion. We have a focus on having students be college and career ready within CTE. I started big picture here with some long-term goals for the CTE office. We have like a 33% breakdown of how we're trying to graduate students. We have a goal of trying to have 33% of our programs support direct to work graduation, and then 33% will have students articulate over to the community college. We have a very strong relationship with AACC. And we are working every day to create an even bigger pipeline now that we are paying for a lot of their tuition. And then a third of our programs hopefully will graduate and send students to a 4-year university, because the programs that we have are preparing students for careers that are going to require a 4-year degree. It's really hard to be an engineer without at least a bachelor's degree. So that's kind of the bigger picture. And I wanted to share some short-term goals. This year in particular, we have a focus on teacher development. And I have some data down here. Hopefully the numbers are visible for the people at home. We have 3 goals this academic year. The first is teacher professional development, and then a focus on certifications, and then finally the growth of CTE using our big giant lever of career coaching and counseling at the middle school level. The data up there, the first data point under the goal number 1 is 88%. And I shared with our guests today that 88% of our teachers we've hired in the last 3 years are conditional, meaning they're career changers. They've never taught a class before. They've never been in a teacher education program. We've hired them right out of industry, and they require a substantial amount of support to train them to be an educator. So, any help we can get in trying to support the growth of teacher training programs in some capacity is always appreciated. Action step that we took on that is we create our own teacher academy for new teachers. It's almost like a boot camp that we run prior to their first day of school. They'll come in and do some training on what it's like to write a lesson plan, what a formative assessment is, and the difference between formative and summative, and all those things. Certifications is always a hot topic in the world of CTE. 60% is the first number up there in that column of goal 2. 60% is our first time pass rate on industry credentials and certifications. It actually would be a lot higher if we only counted credentials that we administered here at CAT South and CAT North, where it's almost 89%. But that includes all of our comprehensive high schools. The second number is where we are focusing a lot of our effort, and that's 11%. Only 11% of the students who are sitting in CTE courses will take a certification test. And I share with our guests today again that in order to meet our 45% goal, our growth in students who are earning industry credentials cannot come from places like CAT North and CAT South, because we are already maximizing that. Every seat is full. We are waitlisted in almost every program. The growth will have to come at the comprehensive level. So we're working on focusing on test preparation administration. Just we've not ever really tested on large scale for different industry certifications at the comprehensive high school. Some are rolling out this year. Now, last up there is 15%. In Anne Arundel County Public Schools, only 15% of our students graduate as a CTE or dual completer, meaning that only 15% of the students will have experienced the full sequence of CTE programs to be a CTE completer. Meaning that 85% don't have an opportunity really to take an industry credential. So we are working with the community college and with some internal offices to try and grow that so that we are potentially administering certifications outside of CTE programs. And so one of the ways that we can grow and really trying to focus on how we can grow that 15%, because I can't reach 45% when only 15% of the students are sitting in the classes taking the test. This is kind of just our roadmap in Anne Arundel County. So we start out in 6th grade, just trying to make the students' awareness of what careers exist bigger. Because you only know the jobs that your parents did, that your friends' parents did, that somebody's friends did. So we try and make your bubble as big as possible because it's hard to go after a career you never knew existed. So that's where we are working with Kirk's team to try and expand their understanding of what exists in the world of careers, starting in 6th to 8th grade. By the 9th grade, they are trying out some different career prep electives that we may offer at the high school. They're applying for programs here at Cat North and Cat South. And then by 11th grade, they're hopefully committed to some kind of program and they're working their way through a track. And our real goal is to graduate students, not just to get them across the stage, but you will graduate from Anne Arundel County Public Schools with a plan that you are confident in enacting. So I want you to know what you're going to do when you leave high school and be prepared for that at some level. And some of our students are going to go directly into a high skill, high wage career, and some are going to have to detour off to college. And I tell parents, college is a great success story, but it cannot be the end. You don't want your kid to have a job going to college because it's not a career. It's just a stopping off point until they get to a career. So please focus on the long term. Sorry, Molly, how would you like me to let you know to?
Just say next
Oh.
slide. It's John, actually.
Oh, John, hey, John. Oh, John, yes, so John, I thought I might have a clicker to animate all this, but it's in your hands.
There you go.
To give you an understanding of what our programs look like, I understand that's very small. It's
It's bigger for the public,
wonderful.
and we'll send all the slides.
To fit all 53 on one slide, it has to look like this, and this is probably summarized in some places. We represent all 11 career clusters. We try and have a diverse portfolio of opportunities for students. Our goal is really whatever career you want to consider pursuing. I want something, an apprenticeship experience, a course experience, a program that's going to give you a taste of what it's like. So you can figure out if you want to do it now before you go to college or launch into a career to try it out. So that's kind of the big picture of CTE. And I want to give you the next slide is an idea of where we run programs. So we have mostly often when I tell people what my job title is, they're like, oh, you're the Cat South and Cat North guy. And I try and help them understand that CTE is at all schools and that we have programs at our comprehensive high schools and our centers of applied technology, and we have very strong work-based learning programs. I also want to highlight, as Rachel pointed it out, thank you so much, Rachel, all of those are highlighted in red are our signature programs. And our signature template was started many years ago where we have almost an early college access where we have students who are earning community college certificates as part of their high school experience. We bring the college into the high school, the professors are teaching the students, and then usually in their senior year, they're off going to the community college. And it's something we're very proud of. Our signature programs are fantastic, and they give students that early college opportunity, and they're earning up to 21 credits while in high school. Apprenticeship has been a big push for us. We really focused and doubled down with our work-based learning team on identifying business partners who could offer our apprenticeship opportunities to our students. And in 1 year, it became our #1 completer program. Some of the other programs you'll see up there are offered at our comprehensive high schools. Project Lead the Way is a big one. We also have a lot of students. We offer Pro Start and early childhood in almost every school in the county. This school year, we just started Teacher Academy. So we are hopeful that Teacher Academy is going to show up there within 3 years when the students start finishing. But all of those numbers will need to grow to reach 45%. And I wanted to talk about credentials for just a moment because they are a hot topic, especially among all my colleagues. We are very anxious to hear what the CTE committee and MSD comes up with, what our new list will be of industry recognized credentials. And we all have our thoughts on it, but I wanted to just kind of show you what we are currently doing. And we have long focused and why our numbers are not higher on certification we feel are valuable and worth the time, right? Like, so the 90 clock hour certificate, which is the old version of early childhood programs, is so valuable that all our kids are getting 100% employable right out of school until the Blooper came along and said CDA is now the minimum to be a classroom educator. So cool, we switched to CDA. We were the first county in the state to have the first student earn their CDA from Crofton High School last year. We had 6 or 7 students earn CDAs last year. This year, Crofton was the first pilot. I would imagine early childhood 90 clock hours going to drop and our CDA numbers will match our 90 clock hours this year because we have figured out how to do them. The rest of those on there are all very valuable for our graduates. Our students enjoy a very strong reputation in the business community, which I think I'll talk about in a later slide. Some things to brag about. This year, we are rapidly approaching 200 students in registered apprenticeship programs. Most of those, for anybody familiar with our data, is at the NSA. The NSA has been a strong partner with us. We have over 150 students at NSA this year, and we really want to try and diversify where our students are in apprenticeship. It just takes a lot of time and energy to recruit those business partners. We have gotten 32 across the MATC finish line for becoming sponsors of apprenticeships. So hopefully we'll have students in those apprenticeships starting next school year. We have some wonderful teachers. I only had the opportunity to put 2 of them on there. Project Lead the Way and ACTE are kind of 2 of our the wheelhouses that we live in for teachers community. And then we have very strong co-curricular programs because nothing will keep a kid engaged in school like learning what they do in the classroom and what it looks like outside the classroom. We will spend almost $250,000 this year sending kids to competitions, and it's worth every single penny because it is a lifelong memory that you will never lose. When you travel for the first time to Atlanta, Georgia to do your FBLA Skills USA competition, they're great, and we had some strong recognition for our co-curriculars.
What's ACTE?
ACTE is Association of Career Technical Educators. And is the national, there's a couple. ACTE is one of the bigger ones. So I've broken up our flows and grows into 3 categories. The first one is programs. Again, I talked about, we have 53 now. I'm trying to design new ones every day. I try and send Richard paperwork on a monthly basis for new programs. We're currently developing and hopefully really close to the finish line on aviation maintenance. I'm trying to design a paralegal program in partnership with our community college. And we're trying to design a robotics and AI program that will start when building a new Center of Applied Technology North open in the 27-28 school year. Every program we try and open, we would like to have college credit and industry certification available. I will tell you, that's really hard. Not all high schoolers have the opportunity to earn credentials in a career where there is no high school level certification. There is no paralegal credential for high school students. They are going to have to go get more training. So I think that one of the grows in this area is industry certifications and credentials are great, but it's not the only thing that makes students employable. So apprenticeships are amazing. I love some apprenticeship opportunities, but we need to consider the bigger picture of some of these things the kids will have to go on to post-secondary, and I can't not offer that opportunity just because there is no high school certification for artificial intelligence yet. My team is very talented. We work really hard to create programs for our students. The problem is that we often, just from the nature of our work, are creating things in isolation. Because I have made it my mission to work with my colleagues across the state, have tried to start fostering a collaborative relationship. So we're co-developing programs, because I bet there are other counties that would love to collaboratively create a robotics and AI program. The systems and structures for that are not currently in place, but I know that there is a lot of energy around and positive energy around making that a reality. So however we can continue to do that, I look forward to it. Apprenticeship. We have a lot of kids in apprenticeship, and we market how great it is to our students and our business partners. I told the team today here that we have split our work-based learning team almost in half, where half are sales and they're out selling apprenticeship, and half are supporting students. We have between apprenticeship and internships over 1,000 students in work-based learning at any one time. So it takes a strong team, a sizable team to support all the students. You're doing site visits, you're talking to business partners. It's a lot of work. But we have that many because we have an established culture of building in internships for so long, and we have now started spinning the apprenticeship wheel. We are a Maryland Works grant recipient with a goal of 600 students by the 24-25 school year. We are on pace to meet that with a lot of effort and a lot of support from all of my colleagues at Central Office. Apprenticeship is sometimes a hard sell to business partners, and we are usually selling it by ourselves in that we have recently brought on the workforce development team because of their very deep Rolodex of business cards and trying to leverage all the partnerships they already have. And I think as a team, we're going to create a lot of momentum. It's still always an interesting pitch when you're selling to business partners, because outside of the skilled trades, it's not a world that they always understand. It's easy to sell to union halls and people who have a very familiar with that work, but outside of the skilled trades, we're working on it. And I really need, and I think that I've also talked to some people about this today. It takes almost 90 hours of like personal contact with a business partner to get them across the finish line to sponsor an apprentice. And they may pick up 1 or 2 kids. And the amount of time you spend to get 1 seat is sizable. And I can't get to 600 or any higher without somebody coming on and taking on, like NSA has 100+ students. And it also makes it easier for me to transport and set up logistics when I don't have all these infinitely variable apprenticeship opportunities where everything is unique. Now, I'm already trying to memorize 53 programs and what class you got to take and certifications you can earn, and that's too much. And the last thing that I think we're strong in, but always could use some help, is teacher talent. We talked about at the beginning, 80% of new teachers are never been in the classroom before. We have built some internal programs, always helps to get some help from the outside. We leverage a lot our talented veteran staff. We work a lot we have created mentoring programs in-house, opportunities for mentor teachers to mentor younger teachers. But the pool is shallow. There are very few universities in the region or on the East Coast graduating CTE teachers. There used to be tons of tech ed programs on the East Coast. I can only think of 2 or 3 off the top of my head now that still graduate with a bachelor's degree, tech ed teachers. And we're all fighting over them. So that's why 88% is so high, is that there are no graduates from universities coming out ready to be teachers in our industry. So what I would love to do is also coordinate with other LEAs to provide professional development, because often in our 53 programs, I have medium heavy duty truck and equipment technology. Diesel is what we used to call it. He is the only one in the entire county. There is one of them, and there is no opportunity to collaborate unless he calls his friends in like the Western Maryland or Eastern Maryland. It takes time and energy to collaborate, because it's not like you're a department of 12 inside of one school. You can talk and bounce ideas off each other. Some coordinated collaboration and professional development would be fantastic. I might have one more, John. So I may be naive, but I believe that career technical education is good for all students. I want 100% of students in CTE programs, because there is no downsides to being prepared to do something when you graduate from high school. Even if you decide not to do it later, it's okay. I'm going to give you a bunch of college credit and a valuable industry credential. It's also, we need to make sure that we remove any barriers from students taking career technical education courses. We also need to focus, we are developing programs that prepare students for both college and careers. And it will take a united coalition of innovation to meet the blueprint goals. We have a group email chain where I email all my colleagues all the time, usually as soon as MSDE sends out an email, we all then respond to it internally on how are we going to do this. That's great. Richard, thank you so much for sending out some grant information. Let's all compete and and all work together to do so. So I think that we are better when we are unified from. That's it. Thank you guys for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And I hope you had a wonderful day today.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I know we are short on time, but Ryan, I just think one quick question I wanted to ask before I kind of wrap us up. If you could summarize in brief, if we wanted to come here because we recognize this work is also for and with you and your peers across the state. So if you could summarize, what would be your one top ask for our committee?
I think, well. One of Rachel's slides in the very beginning talked about how we are not doing a good enough job developing programs to graduate students from, to build the workforce.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're wrong. I just disagree to an extent that, we have so many programs, it would be impossible not to find something that you could enjoy and is preparing you for a career. That's how the templates have been set up for a long time. And we've been doing, I think, a great job of preparing students. The biggest problem is with the push to go to college has been a push for so long that when I talk to students within our own district, they don't know what I do. They don't know about programs. And I would imagine a lot of my colleagues feel the same way. It is, we compete for the same students with those whose parents are pushing them to go to college. So anywhere where we can have a unified message from the state level all the way down to we are both college and career, because college is not a destination, it's a stopover point. I think that is part of it. And I think in your implementation plan, I was gonna try and cite the page, but I won't, because I get it wrong. You left the door open for recognizing some amount of college credit as industry credential. And I feel like that's a valuable opportunity, and that if I graduate a student who's ready to go to the community college with, a full semester or almost a year finished, like I feel like that is as valuable as any other industry credential I'm gonna get that student. And I can't only create programs that have and somehow available industry credential. So just when you're creating a template for what new programs look like, I think it will help us if we continue to create programs that push students in both directions.
Thank you. We could generate a whole new conversation, I think, just on that, but I think that's a really good place for us to end for today. This is a dialogue that's gonna keep happening. So thank you so much. Again, for the great work you're doing, for the examples you've shared with us, and for sharing your take on this work with us too. As we're ending the meeting, I do kind of want to just reiterate, before I talk about this fabulous opportunity on the slide. Kind of earlier in the meeting, we talked about the work ahead, and I think this was some good, we shared a lot of really important information in this meeting, and I'm really looking forward to meetings with this group here, but also outside of our kind of official meetings as we do work together, where we're really digging in and having some real conversations. And I think just even today, we've surfaced some things that we can really dive into further as a group, to really discuss and hash out. So more to come, but I know that this fall and winter, a few of the things that Chairwoman Norton spoke about earlier that we're really going to be focusing on is that CTE committee framework, the CTE framework. Refining our definitions, getting really clear on those, so we can really communicate those out to everyone who needs them to do the work in advance for that 45% goal. Working collaboratively with MSD on industry recognized credentials for these programs. We're already kind of starting to talk about that process, and of course, collaborating on the Perkins plan. And I think all those are places where we will have more opportunities for CTE committee members and stakeholders who are not currently represented on the committee, who are important stakeholders in all of this work, to engage at various points in all of those processes. So we have a lot ahead of us, and more to come on all those fronts, but those are really going to be some places we're focusing these next few months. And I think this helped lay some good groundwork for that. So thank you, and thank you to our guests who joined us today. And with that, I'll turn to National Apprenticeship Week. Really quickly, it's on your slide. There's a website reference there. We did want to highlight this for the committee. Several members are already planning to participate in, host, share events as part of that week. This is a national endeavor of the U.S. Department of Labor and Maryland Department of Labor and its partners organize events, local boards organize events. Many have apprenticeship stakeholders across the state arrange these opportunities to learn more about apprenticeship, to elevate great work happening and everything that apprenticeships can offer. So there are a lot of events where we're going to be showcasing apprenticeships for both adults and youth going on across the state. So I do encourage you to visit this website to learn more, or reach out to me, Molly, any of our colleagues at the Department of Labor. We'd be happy to share more information and invite you all to collaborate and attend. So
the NATSE meeting is Tuesday that week.
There we go. That's a good one. So thank you. I think that now I think that's it for me. So I think with that, I will actually turn it to Chairwoman Norton.
Great. Thank you all for being here today, and I'm going to thank you in advance for the time and focus and energy that you will bring to this important work in the coming months. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Any opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
And thanks everyone for your extra few minutes here too.